So I have seen the Odyssey. I went to the theaters and I watched the Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's new movie, The Odyssey. And in spite of all of the controversy around this movie, I can genuinely say it was a waste of time. I will try and go into spoilers here from now on. If you don't want to be spoiled watching the Odyssey, click off this video now. But I warn you, it's kind of weird that, like, I can't give too many spoilers on a 3,000-year-old story. If you know the story, then you know it. If you don't, just hear me out on what this review is going to look like. Going and seeing this movie, I had very low expectations, and I kind of was trying to be surprised by what Nolan would provide. He is one of the last great directors in Hollywood, and I like most of his films. I like the Dark Knight trilogy. I mean, The Dark Knight Rises isn't great, but I still like the trilogy, and I liked Oppenheimer, and I think Christopher Nolan has a lot of hits and a couple misses. I never saw Tenet. Don't really need to. Don't really want to. But Nolan has always been usually a reliable director. And in this case, I would say as a director, he doesn't really change how he approaches things, meaning that all the worst tropes and all the worst things about Christopher Nolan, he doesn't really fix for this movie. All the great things about Nolan, he doesn't really change either. Now, whether or not he was capable of delivering the story, I think, is out of the question. I do believe that Nolan is capable of delivering a proper adaptation of the Odyssey. That is without question for me. It was just a matter of all the red flags that were leading up to it. The adaptation from the Emily Watson, book that was supposed to be, or translation that was supposed to be adapted into this movie, and the fact that he was sort of being the last line of defense for a dying breed of woke Hollywood being subversive, because that's what this movie came down to be. It was subversive, disingenuous, and it ultimately just kind of takes you out of the movie. The movie is a drag. Okay, it is almost 3 hours long. We're talking 2 hours and 50 something minutes, almost a 3 hour movie. And for me, I wanted to leave the theater 5 minutes in. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I have no desire to watch the rest of this movie. But I did. I stuck around all the way to the end. The biggest criticism I have of this movie, the thing that bothered me the most, was the dialogue. It was the dialogue and the delivery from the actors. All the actors play themselves. Matt Damon plays Matt Damon. He doesn't really play Odysseus. Anne Hathaway just plays Anne Hathaway. Tom Holland just plays Tom Holland. It feels like each of the actors are just actors playing themselves, playing the characters. Does that make sense? It doesn't feel like they're actually playing the character in the movie, in the story. John Bernthal, another guy who I really like, just plays fucking John Bernthal in the movie. They can give him all the names they want in Greek. It doesn't matter. All I see is John Bernthal. So the acting is just actors acting like themselves, and like they typecast themselves in the movie. That is the part that took me out the most. That was the worst possible thing. Then you have the controversy surrounding the casting, which most of these characters don't show up in the movie for very long. Helen of Troy and her sister, both played by Lupita Nyong'o, don't show up in the movie very long. Doesn't really matter. It still takes you out of the movie to know that, to know the idea behind it, and the actual motivation behind their casting. Same thing with Elliot Page. Elliot Page literally opens the movie. He plays he, whatever, this fucking creep plays the bookend of the movie. So it opens with Elliot Page's character Sinon, and it ends with Elliot Page's character Sinon, with basically Odysseus saying, I'm taking the identity of Sinon, the bravest warrior I've ever known. I almost freaking laughed out loud in the theater seeing that shit. And of course, it was funny watching Elliot Page at the very beginning waddling like a little child wearing a grown man's armor as he was walking across the beach to find a Trojan horse that was on the beach. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I am no Greek philosopher or expert on Greek mythology or literature, but wasn't the Trojan horse a gift from Greek from oh god, what are they? I'm blanking on it now. They were a gift to Troy, right? As it was a Trojan horse. It was a trap. It was a trap to get in, and this wooden horse was at the front gate of Troy. Well, the soldiers of Troy find the wooden horse washed up in the beach. I got to ask the question, how did the horse get there on the beach? I don't understand how it got there. And then why would they pull it out saying it was a gift from the gods whenever they bring in Elliot Page, who says, yeah, it's a gift from the gods. You should take it. It's like, all right, we'll just pull this giant wooden horse out of the sand and bring it to our castle. And of course, what happens? They sack Troy. But you don't really learn that in a linear order because the entire movie is told out of order. The entire movie has a bunch of flashbacks and unreliable narrator shit where basically you learn about the history of Odysseus' journey through other characters. Tom Holland's character, Telemachus, the son of Odysseus. He is going around to different characters to try and find out what happened to his father Odysseus. And then you have other characters like Odysseus talking to Calypso, trying to recall all the things that happened to him over the past several years. Instead of, okay, Christopher Nolan, I know this strategy has worked for Christopher Nolan movies in the past where it's a non-linear thing. Remember in Dark Knight Rises, whenever Bruce Wayne is in the pit, right? And he learns about the history of Bane and Bane's relationship to Talia al Ghul and Ra's al Ghul, right? That little sequence of flashbacks and all that. That's basically the entire movie of the Odyssey. It is a bunch of characters trying to recall the history of themselves in the adventures that they were having. Now, I get that's what the Odyssey was kind of like, right? It was Odysseus recalling a lot of events that he had been through. But it creates a really confusing and really pretentious narrative for a movie. I was sitting there like ready to fucking fall asleep. I was like, dude, this is so boring. I can't get over how slow this movie is, how uninterested I am in finding out what happens here. I just want this to move the fuck on. I just want a linear story path, right? And look, honestly, if it was up to me, I would say that the Odyssey needs to be adapted into a 4-hour movie, maybe a TV series, a mini TV series, one season tops, right? It feels like if you were to do that, you could do it accurately, you could do it linearly, and you can do it in a fun and engaging way. This felt backwards. It felt all over the place. I couldn't keep up with everything that was happening. I knew what was happening too. Personally, my best the best adaptation I've seen of the Odyssey is the Epic the Musical. If you haven't seen my video Fresh Media about the Epic the Musical, you should go check it out because it basically I recommend you check out the musical version of the Odyssey. It's free on YouTube. And find the animatics for it too because they're very good. But basically, like, this movie just drags, and the acting does not help. The dialogue doesn't help, taking you out of it. The fact that the multiracial LA cast of the Greek people, it's enough to throw you off. And you know the motivation behind it. The movie just kind of skims over things like the sirens. It doesn't even, it barely addresses the lotus flower. It mostly addresses it in the arena, or not the arena, the place where Calypso's at. And when you find out that, Charlize Theron plays Calypso and Zendaya plays Athena, you think, oh, those two roles should be way reversed and it would work better, but no. And it turns out that Athena, played by Zendaya, was actually a poor child, a poor girl that was decapitated in Troy, and Odysseus is projecting his guilt into this poor child in the visual of Athena. And again, I am no expert on the Odyssey. I'm no expert on Greek literature or Greek mythology. I am simply a fan. If you ask me, most of my Greek mythology was learned through Percy Jackson. Okay? I'll just be clear about that. But that shouldn't matter. Aside from the diversity casting, aside from the hammering you over the head with Elliot Page and all this other shit, and then Lupita Nyong'o, all the horrible things that they've said outside of the movie to try and be subversive and try and be a bunch of dicks, a bunch of disingenuous dicks, this movie still suffers from one thing, and it is modernity, verisimilitude. is dead in this movie. It does not keep you engaged, and modernity just creeps up on you every single time. There was a moment in the theater, in the very end, whenever Odysseus finally reaches his wife, and I am now blanking on. I can't bring it. I can't think of the name where he came from. I can't remember what, but it's not the Iliad. It's I'll get it eventually. I'll get it eventually. I keep fucking forgetting about it. But he makes it home and he finds his wife Penelope, and there's a moment in the theater when somebody's cell phone rings, right? Just out loud. Just, the cell phone ring. And I swear to God, I was like, did somebody literally forget to edit this out of the movie? It was like, oh, wait, the cell phone ring is coming from inside the theater. It's not coming from the movie itself. That's because I was so, like, I believed that a cell phone ringing in this movie was believable because of how this movie has been treated with its modern, interpretation. Everybody's speaking like it's, modern day LA. Everybody, all the diverse casting, all the, the non-linear storytelling, all the worst aspects of Nolan, that when a cell phone rings in the theater, I think it is actually happening on screen. That is how unbelievable this movie actually is. And sure, I get it. Epic fantasy. It's not supposed to be believable. Well, the least it could do is be sincere. But it's not sincere. It's subversive. It is meant to essentially erase history, and it is meant to replace history. Erase it and replace it. So that now young people coming up and be like, oh, I really like this movie, so this must have been the true Odyssey. No. No. And I don't care how accurate it is to the actual Odyssey novelization, because we're talking about a 3,000-year-old story that has been translated over the course of those 3,000 years in multiple different ways. There were no Greek actors in this movie. Hell, you can be mad at Lupita Nyong'o and you can be mad at Elliot Page, but the fact that Matt Damon was in this movie and Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland, those aren't Greek actors, and they didn't even bother trying with accents. They were probably told, hey, just be Matt Damon. Just be Tom Holland. Just be Anne Hathaway. And it takes you out of the movie. Is the movie good? I don't know. I don't think it was. I think it was too long and it felt rushed. It felt like the ending was rushed, particularly whenever Odysseus comes back to his castle and he tries to take out the suitors. It's... And when I say I don't care about how accurate it is, I know that there's going to be a bunch of people that are saying, oh, it's accurate to the books because of this, this, and this, and this, or it's accurate to the story because of this, this, and this. But they're being disingenuous because they never address that Helen of Troy is an African woman. They never address that John Leguizamo is a Latino blind man that is probably barely mentioned. They never mention that Sinon was a character that was not in the Odyssey or the Iliad and was only brought in for Elliot Page to be in the movie. They always say, oh, it's accurate to the Odyssey because of this, this, and this, but they never bring up Elliot Page and Lupita Nyong'o's castings as a fault to the accuracy. So that's when I say I don't care. That's what I mean. Because at this point, it doesn't matter. We're not talking about the original novelization or the original story or text or whatever. We're talking about the movie. Now, there are some good scenes. I agree with some of the general consensus that there are some fun scenes that keep you engaged. For example, whenever the Cyclops scene I thought was decent. Wasn't the greatest thing ever, but I like the Cyclops scene. I like the horror scene with Samantha Morton's Cersei, where she turns all of the soldiers into pigs. Now that is another thing that kind of got me out of the movie, was that, okay, she turns the soldiers into pigs, and now we were dealing with this intersectional idea. There's a couple moments in this movie where you see the intersectional feminist projections into this movie, particularly Lupita Nyong'o's character, Helen of Troy's sister. I can't remember her name, but she kills... why am I blanking on his name now? There's so many Greek names. She kills her husband, who sent the battle into Troy. I want to say not Archimedes. It's not Archimedes. Agamemnon. She kills Agamemnon, which I'm sure is accurate to mythology. But they treat it as a feminist empowerment moment, right? Where she's able to kill him, and it was actually genuinely terrifying when I saw Lupita Nyong'o screaming like a chimp on the screen when she stabs Agamemnon in the neck. And so there's also Anne Hathaway's character Penelope, who basically lashes out at her son and calls her own son not man enough to take the throne, and because she just wants her man to come back home. That was definitely an intersectional message right there. Also, terrible mothering. Then you have Cersei, who is saying that these men are pigs and that is their nature. And of course, Odysseus doesn't fight back against this because he saw what they were doing when they sacked Troy. So he has a lot of guilt for Troy, and I get it. That's part of the story. But they kind of treat it as this, like, oh, he's guilty because of what he did or what he saw his soldiers do with Troy. But apparently he's not guilty. Like, he was guilty for Troy, but he wasn't guilty for all the men that he basically sent to their deaths, which I think was more important, is that Odysseus was more upset that he sent people, his own men, to their deaths on this adventure than he was about what he did at Troy. And not even mentioning what they left out of what he did at Troy, which was ultimately killing the prince. I can't remember what it was a baby, essentially. Now that could be just a different adaptation. That could be whatever. Like I said, I'm no expert. But watching the movie, the mixing of the sound is still terrible. This is one of Nolan's worst qualities as a filmmaker, the mixing of the sound, because you have these big ass bomb speakers coming at you in the movie theater, right? Well, there are moments where the bass and the low end frequencies are louder than what the movie is actually providing. For example, the dialogue. It's hard to hear the characters talking whenever you have this boom sound, right? And then whenever you have one scene where characters are whispering, we're talking about something right here, and then boom, Lupita Nyong'o chimps out and stabs Agamemnon in the fucking neck. And so it provides a jump scare, and it fucking throws you off. But I can't say that there's the worst part of this movie. I feel like, honestly, in a different timeline, a different world, in a different time, I would actually really enjoy this movie. Aside from the diverse casting, aside from the modern language and dialogue, there could have been a time where I would have really enjoyed this movie. The problem that I have with this movie is that it layers on top of itself with problems. And it's so boring and long that it just doesn't feel like it's an epic. It feels like it's homework, right? It feels more like homework that you have to keep up with instead of having fun in the theater, having some sort of enjoyment from watching an epic fantasy tale set in a different time, right? It just feels different in a bad way. And it's disappointing that this came from Christopher Nolan, because he's supposed to be one of the most reliable directors of our time. I don't think that's the case anymore. But that's just me. I'm not going to let the Nolan Bros bully me into thinking any different. Now, when it came to casting, you could be mad at Elliot Page and you could be mad at Lupita Nyong'o. But for me, it was just surprising that they picked up so many Walking Dead actors and thought, yeah, these would be great ancient Greek characters. From Ryan Hurst, who used to be Beta, Samantha Martin, John Bernthal, a bunch of saviors, governors, people, and whisperers. There was a bunch of different Walking Dead characters or Walking Dead actors that they just picked up and threw into this movie, which is fine. They're all great actors. They just don't fit into this narrative. And so for Hollywood constantly talking about diversity and being true to cultures, like how they were with Moana. They said that Moana was supposed to be more Polynesian and they were going to be accurate to Polynesian culture. They hired actors that were Polynesian and Pacific Islanders. In this movie, they didn't hire one Greek actor. They couldn't get the armor right. They couldn't get the ships right. There was a moment where John Bernthal, actually not even just John Bernthal, Matt Damon, and Tom Holland were all wearing sweaters. Like J. Crew sweaters, like basic designer sweaters, while with a bunch of like Party City armor over it. It looked like shit. It looked like absolute shit. You could forgive the armor, but still, again, This movie wouldn't be so bad if it was one small thing, right? If it was just the armor, fine. Fine. If it's just the armor, fine. If it was just the sound design, fine. What makes this movie bad isn't just the casting. It isn't just the writing. It isn't just the unreliable narrator. It's all of it combined. It is all of it combined. It is the casting, the acting, the dialogue, the unreliable narrator, the non-linear storytelling, the sound design, the costume designs, the accuracy of the storytelling, the attitudes outside of the movie, the diversity of the movie, the fan attacks that have come online because of it. All of it amounts to one massive epic disaster. The final Odyssey of woke Hollywood. This is where we're at. This is where we're at. Now, is it going to make a lot of money? Probably. I don't see it losing money, but I also don't see it becoming a billion-dollar movie. I don't even see it making more money than Oppenheimer. But nonetheless, this movie is an epic cataclysm on a different level. And I wish I could say that there were more things about this movie that I liked. I liked some scenes. The horror scene where Cersei turns men into pigs, which I thought was kind of cool. I liked the Cyclops scene. They skimmed over the sirens. I kind of liked the ending where Odysseus takes out all the suitors. Some of the other suitors just bend the knee and he just kind of forgives them. I didn't like that Odysseus sails off with Penelope in exile while Telemachus becomes king with no explanation. And I also there was one moment when they were encountering the sirens where they put wax in their ears, right? That's accurate to the story, I know for a fact. When they were putting wax in their ears, you could see the sound design cut off one side, cut off the other side, panning. That's the one thing I will compliment about the sound design. But again, what makes this movie bad is not that it is just one thing. It is all of these things combined into something that, like, if this was any other director, we would be thrashing it for. But the fact that it's Christopher Nolan, we give it a benefit of the doubt. And so I don't know if this movie's going to make all the money in the world. It's probably not going to make more money than Oppenheimer. But I still think that normies are really going to like it. So if you're a normie and you don't know anything about the Odyssey, you'll probably love this movie. I know there was a lot of normies in the theater that I saw came out like, oh, it's pretty good. But, you know, they're normies, so I don't expect much from them. Now, I also want to say one more thing before I go off on this rant and tell you that this movie is an absolute fucking failure, because it is. But to the people in the theater, I assume y'all were Mediterranean folks, Greek folks most likely. To y'all smoking hookahs and wearing a bunch of cologne coming into the movie smelling like it was a hookah shop, thank you so much for bringing some genuine Greek culture to this movie. I gotta thank y'all, because I couldn't get that fucking cologne and hookah smell out of my nostrils the entire time I was in the theater. That is the only genuine Greek moment I could find in this movie. I just want to say thank y'all to those who did that. But I do not recommend this movie for people who just want an action epic fantasy to the level of the movie Troy or 300. Go watch those movies instead. Go watch 300. Go watch Troy. Go watch any other Greek fantasy. Hell, Clash of the Titans. You could watch either the classic Clash of the Titans or the modern remake, which, I mean, is not as good, but still, I would watch those instead. The Odyssey is not good. It is not good, and I wish I had more time to explain it, but this video has been an odyssey in of itself to get out of my chest after seeing that movie. Is it an absolute piece of shit? I wouldn't say necessarily. I've definitely seen worse movies. Is The Odyssey better than Supergirl? Yes. Is it better than Mandalorian Grogu? No, I don't think so. But that's a... See, we're measuring levels of shit now, is basically where we're at. But I'm going to end my rant right here. That is what I have. If I have more to add to this rant, I will make another video. But until then, leave a comment and down below if you like this movie, if you saw this movie, you haven't seen this movie, or you're going to watch this movie. Leave a comment down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all in another video very soon. That has been my review of The Odyssey.